Football on the Sports Social Podcast Network is brought to you by BetVictor, where those who think outside the box can create unique football bets from a combination of markets. Create your best bet with the innovative BetVictor Bet Builder. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Hello and welcome to the 1865 match report as we look back on a memorable victory for Forest away at Chelsea. The Reds picked up their first away win of the season with a 1-0 win at Stamford Bridge thanks to Antony Elanga's goal early in the second half, latching onto a through ball from Yates and Awoniyi before slotting a cool finish past Robert Sanchez to give Forest all 3 points. Forest had to work for it though, and they were rewarded with a strong defensive display and a hard-working display to pick up 3 points against a Chelsea team who perhaps could have done better on the day themselves, but to go and win at Stamford Bridge is a real statement result and one of the most notable results I think Forest have picked up since their return to the Premier League. It's Stephen here, and I've got Tom with me to look back over the game. Tom, will get started with the Forest team news. So, despite 7 deadline day signings that Forest made, only one of those was in the squad. That was Nuno Tavares. He was on the bench. But the starting 11 for Forest, very similar to what we've come to expect over the opening 3 games of the season, with that 3-4-2-1 formation. So, Matt Turner in goal, a back 3 of Joe Worrell, Willy Boly and Scott McKenna. Across the middle, Serge Aurier, Ryan Yates, Orel Mangala and Ola Aina. Danilo and Gibbs White in front of them. And then up front, the informed man, Yates and Awoniyi. The bench, Ethan Horvath, Nuno Tavares, Cheick Kouyaté, Chris Wood, Felipe, Moussa Niakhaté, Antony Elanga, Gonzalo Montiel and Brandon Aguilera. Now, Forest made one change from the defeat at Man United last week, an enforced one, because Brennan Johnson is no longer with the club. He completed a deadline day move to Tottenham Hotspur for £47.5 million. So there was no Johnson. He was replaced by Orel Mangala, and Joe Worrell served his 1-game suspension that he picked up for his red card against Man United, served that suspension against Burnley in the Cup in midweek. Forest starting life without Brennan Johnson here, Tom, and really they seem to adapt well, didn't they, to losing such an influential player?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's chalk and cheese, but I've been in teams before where, say, on a Sunday morning and your best player is unavailable and you're playing against a team what's probably near the league and you think, what we're going to get out of the game today, because obviously you've missed a huge player for you. But Forest adapted really well. I mean, after the Burnley game, they would have probably had one training session on the Thursday, then a prep session on the Friday, and then obviously with the intention of Johnson would be included. Then just before the bus leaves to go down to London, he gets taken away and ends up signing for Tottenham. So, yeah, with all of that, I think Forest have adapted really well, and they stuck to the plan which Steve Cooper and his staff have put in place for the game, and they were brilliant yesterday, every one of them. So, and it's nice. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago in the pod where last season was going to places, rolling over, getting their bellies tickled, and not even laying a glove on any of these teams. Sometimes even the Leicester teams, no disrespect to them, but going to West Ham last season and losing 4-0. Leicester, who were relegated, and obviously that poor performance against Leeds at Elland Road back in April. So to go to these places, and it's not like we've gone to, say, no disrespect to him again, but like Luton or places like that. We've actually gone to teams who are going to be hunting down the Champions League spots, or if not, the title, in terms of Arsenal, Man U, and Chelsea to probably a lesser extent, probably a bit too early for them. But to go to these places and actually compete, it's brilliant for the fans who managed to get tickets to actually see us performing against these top sides.
And that was the first win at Chelsea for 29 years. January 1995, the last time that Forest managed it, with 2 goals from Stan Collymore. Now, granted, Forest haven't been in the Premier League for a big chunk of that time, but nevertheless, still a fantastic victory. Looking back over the game then, so in that first half, actually, Chelsea started brighter, were on the front foot quickly, and it was Ola Aina who needed to make a last-ditch block to deny Raheem Sterling. Ball in from Ben Chilwell from the left-hand side, and Sterling looked as if he would be getting on the end of it in front of goal, but Aina came across. He was tracking him and got a really good tackle in to deny Sterling. And after that, Conor Gallagher, he had a curling shot that just flew high and wide of Matt Turner's goal. But then Forest started to come into the game a bit more, and Taiwo Awoniyi, who was a menace throughout, the battle between him and Thiago Silva was great to watch. He was almost in on goal. He had a defender in front of him. He had Morgan Gibbs-White to his left-hand side. Just tried to play him in, but the pass was blocked, and Chelsea went up the other end, but missed an opportunity. And not long after that, Awoniyi was pulled down by Thiago Silva, challenging for a high ball, and from the resulting free kick, the ball falls to Awoniyi, but he fires the shot over the bar, and the chance was missed. Actually, Tom, in that first half, those Forest free kicks were causing Chelsea problems, weren't they?
Yeah, and including sometimes the long throw from Ola Aina. So, yeah, Awoniyi's just the manager. And they weren't the biggest side, to be honest. If you look at Chelsea, he pinned himself up against Thiago Silva, who last season I thought he was one of the best defenders to come to the City ground, along with Martinez at Man United and Van Dijk. I thought all of them were brilliant. But Thiago Silva, I think he's 38 now. But he had a really tough afternoon yesterday with Awoniyi. Awoniyi's been in great form, hasn't he? Since the back end of last season, going into this season, he's been brilliant. And Thiago Silva had a rough ride. And when he did go off, Awoniyi, we thought he was going to go off before half time, to be honest. He was like feeling he's fine. I thought he's going off, and even Chris Wood started warming up just before the halftime whistle. But like I said, we've got another 25 minutes out of Taiwo, and he's brilliant. He was yesterday. So yeah, Thiago Silva. I don't think he'll have many tough afternoons like that all season, because Taiwo is an absolute handful for any defender at the moment.
And that battle between Awoniyi and Silva continued not long after. It was another Forest free kick. Chelsea didn't clear it very far. It was recycled by Scott McKenna, nodded it back into the box, and Awoniyi, with his back to goal, held off Silva and fired an instinctive effort, trying to almost hook the ball back over his shoulder towards goal, but it went wide. Again, just an intent from Awoniyi, and just showing how much of a handful he was being in the game. Between sort of half an hour and the end of the first half, not a great deal happened in terms of chances for either team, actually. Nothing really of note, aside from a shot from Enzo Fernandez that went over the bar for Chelsea. But in that first half, even though Forest hadn't created a great deal of chances themselves, they looked all right, didn't they? It felt like they were well in the game, and they were keeping Chelsea at arm's length. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, pretty much. I've watched Chelsea twice this season, saw them against West Ham, and I thought they were very good against West Ham. They just haven't got that finishing touch. They just haven't got that striker who's just got that knack of finishing off the chances. I mean, Nicholas Jackson, I know he's quite a young, I think he's young, and obviously over time he might get a bit better in terms of chances and things like that. But I thought yesterday, I didn't want to tempt fate during the game, but I thought they're just not going to score today. You had all the ball, but you can have all the ball, but if you don't do anything with the ball, you're not going to win football matches. And I felt there was people around me who were like bricking it a bit every time Chelsea come forward, but I just thought Forest have got this. And we'll come on to him a bit later, but Joe Worrell was immense yesterday with Bolly and Scott McKenna. And Scott McKenna has probably had a bit of criticism as well as Joe in terms of performances this season, especially with Nick Atta being on the bench and Felipe being on the bench. And then obviously Murillo's just signed etc. So there's a lot of competition there. But I just think at the moment Chelsea just haven't got that finishing prowess of actually finishing chances off. I mean, Sterling's been brilliant, hasn't he, this season? He had a bit of a lull period last year for Chelsea, like everybody did with a Chelsea contingent. But yeah, they could be still playing now. Wouldn't have scored.
And just before half-time, a blow for Forest when Danilo pulled up unchallenged on the far right-hand side of the pitch. He was chasing a ball, nobody around him, and it looks like it's his hamstring that's gone. So he pulled up and was replaced by Antony Elanga in first half injury time, which turned out to be a pivotal moment in the game, as we'll go on to find out. But 0-0 at half-time. And Forest looked okay, keeping Chelsea at arm's length, and had given themselves a decent platform to go into the second half and try and build on it. And in that opening few minutes of the second half came the Forest goal, Tom, and it was a mix-up in the Chelsea midfield, and Yates and Mangala won the ball back between them for Forest. It comes to Taiwo Awoniyi, and he fed the ball to Elanga, who was making a run through the central striker channel. And the finish that Elanga produces is so cool and so calm to slot the ball into the corner the way he did. Talk us through it from your vantage point at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, well, I was on the front row. So you sometimes... I've never been a fan of sitting on the front row. I like to be a bit perched so you can actually see the play. And sometimes you kind of misjudge where players are and how far the ball is away from the other end, etc. But yeah, we'll mix up in midfield, and Taiwo picks it up, and you can just see Elanga just peeling off to the right of him, and he plays him in. And I thought he missed it because the ball doesn't actually hit the back of the net. It hits the bottom stanchion of for the box nets, the metal stanchion frame, what goes, and it hit that and it comes back out. So I thought he's like, has he hit the stanchion what keeps the stanchion pole what keeps the net in place? And then they're celebrating in the corner, and then it was a bit of a delay. Then obviously we all started celebrating. But I mentioned in the last match report, it's been a common theme that from the 46th minute when the players come out to the 52nd minute, Forest never get going. They're very slow out the blocks, and like against Sheffield United, they conceded a goal, didn't they, soon after half time? And I was saying to people around us, I says, Forest need to carry on what they're doing, and obviously come out the blocks a lot quicker than they have been doing, and they did that. And with the goal by Elanga, looking back on Match of the Day, and obviously coming back from London last night, and because obviously the YouTube highlights are on pretty quick, aren't they? It's a class finish. He just puts enough power on it. And to our older listeners out there, and I'm not comparing the two players, but Roberto Baggio used to do that. When he scored, he used to always just put enough power on it to get it past the goalkeeper, and Elanga did that. He's obviously opened his body up and curled it into the bottom corner past Roger Sanchez. Is it Robert or Roger?
Robert.
Yeah, and
Roger was the DJ.
Yeah, another chance. And it's a class finish from Elanga, and I think he's a very shrewd buy for us. I mean, and Man U I don't know the ins and outs of Man U of how they're set up behind the scenes, but he seems to have come to Forest and he's had a lot of love from everybody. And it's probably sometimes players just need that a bit of appreciation and respect and everything. And he's absolutely buzzing. As soon as he signed his interview, he was like, "I want to be here," kind of thing. And It didn't seem like the generic response of what you get in an interview. It sounded like it come from the heart and everything. And he did his post-match interview after the game yesterday, and it's just a class finish. And I've been very impressed because in the games what he has played this season, he's had a massive impact on all the games, hasn't he?
Yeah. It does feel like he's got the support of the manager and everybody around him at the club. And you get the feeling that at United, he wasn't getting that so much, and he certainly wasn't getting the opportunities to play regularly. So, yeah, remains to be seen how that will develop now. But the early signs are really positive from Antony Elanga, and that was a superb finish in the circumstances. After the goal, Chelsea, as you would expect, came out and attacked Forest and pinned Forest back. Willy Bolly needed to make a great last-ditch tackle to deny Jackson. And even though Forest were doing plenty of defending, they were doing it well. It wasn't like they were holding on and struggling. And that back three in particular, Worrell, Bolly and McKenna, all of them were playing well. Even Aurier and Aina as wing-backs, they were having a solid game each. And in the midfield, they were competing. Ryan Yates, Mangala, they were all just working so hard to close down Chelsea, to win the ball back and defend the lead that they'd got. And they'd done it really, really well. 64 minutes, Chris Wood came on for Taiwo Awoniyi. So that meant that Awoniyi's scoring run was over, but he played a big part in the goal and setting that up for Antony Elanga. Serge Aurier, a few minutes later, he limped off. Not entirely sure if that was just fatigue or if he's picked up a knock. He was replaced by Gonzalo Montiel. And Steve Cooper used this as an opportunity to make 3 subs. So Czech Kouyaté also came on for Oral Mangala. And Nuno Tavares, the deadline day loan signing from Arsenal, he came on for Ola Aina and slotted in at left back to make his Forest debut. But again, it felt like Forest were defending well, Tom. And even though Chelsea were putting pressure on them, they were struggling to create clear-cut chances, weren't they? I don't remember Matt Turner having a save to make.
No, and it wasn't desperate defending. It was like good, precise timing, positioning. I mean, they mentioned it on Match of the Day last night. Like I says, it wasn't like, it was desperate, and it was just like real size, positioning and reading the game really, really well. I mean, Joe Worrell, I mean, he does get criticised because of the step up in class from last season. He struggled in a few games. He was taken out the side and he come back. But yesterday, it was nice that the fans did the chant "is one of our own," because he was like granite yesterday, and especially the week what he's had. He got a sending off at Man United last week. His father, start that again. Yeah, the week what he's had, he's been absolutely brilliant. He lost his uncle, Sergeant Saville, in the week regarding what happened when he was on duty and everything. And but to put that performance in yesterday, and according to Steve Cooper, he hasn't missed any training sessions and everything. He's been like really professional, which we know Joe's that kind of person anyway. But he was absolutely brilliant yesterday, and even when the players were going off, and Steve Cooper just nudged him towards the Forest fans to take in the appreciation. And I'm really pleased for Joe. Like I say, he's had a really, really tough week, and he just capped off with an absolute brilliant performance yesterday. And and he captained the side to victory yesterday. And I think he's obviously felt it, because it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? An away win. We haven't won away since Southampton in January. And alongside him, another one of our own, Ryan Yates. He was absolutely brilliant yesterday. And I don't think we realise how important he is. He will be the first to admit he's not probably the most technically gifted player that we've got, but he's got balls of steel, hasn't he? And he will put his body on the line. There was one where I think somebody smashed a ball and it hit him in the head or something like that. And I thought he'll have to go off with a concussion here, but he didn't, did he? So, like I says, he's another one who's made out of granite, and he puts his body on the line and everything. But defensively yesterday we were sound and everything. And Scott McKenna had a brilliant game yesterday. Willy Bolly had a good game, and the two wing backs, Olorina and Montiel, and then the guys who come on, Tavares, and obviously Aurier had a good game as well. So defensively we're brilliant, and like I said earlier, if Chelsea would be still playing now, they still wouldn't have scored.
They did have one big chance before the end, and it fell to Jackson inside the 6-yard box after Joe Worrell had blocked Raheem Sterling's cross, and the ball just dropped back to Jackson in that 6-yard box. I think it was McKenna, it might have been Bolly in front of him on the line, but it was still an opportunity that looked easier to score, and he put the ball over the bar. And I think at that point, I know I started to feel that maybe Forest, this is going to be their day and they are going to get the 3 points, because missing chances like that is costly. And there was another chance later on, in fact, in injury time, and it was Raheem Sterling, who was played in down the right-hand side, hit a low shot, but he dragged it wide of the post. I think Tavares had put pressure on him sliding in, so that maybe had an effect. But again, an opportunity which on another day you'd expect Sterling to at least hit the target with. But he didn't, and that was the last moment of action of note in the game. And Forest held on for a 1-0 victory, and a brilliant performance, brilliant result for them. And it's worth mentioning throughout as well, the away end was making the noise. It was coming through on the commentary, on the TV, and the eruption at the end with the final whistle of the away Forest supporters was brilliant. It really was. And while we've got that away support, it's really going to help Forest in games like this where they've got to get results, and they're holding on to leads and battling away from home. Again, hats off to the Forest supporters.
Yeah, I mean, we've been up and down the country, and we've suffered, haven't we? We've got like especially last season, we was going to places and getting absolutely mauled by teams, even teams at the top, and even teams in mid-table, and sometimes teams who were in and around us at parts of last season, i.e., away at Leicester and away at West Ham and Leeds. So yeah, I mean, Steve Cooper mentioned it again, didn't he? That was for the supporters, and they've been like that through the good and bad times. And yeah, nobody. The thing with Forest fans going away from home, and I'm very, very fortunate of being able to get tickets and go to these matches, is that there's been a couple of times where it's like the performances haven't been great, but we have like stuck with the team throughout and everything, and we've given them that platform to actually say, "Look, just carry on what you're doing, and everything's going to be okay," and everything. So, but yeah, the fans have been absolutely brilliant, especially at home, but also away, because obviously it takes a lot of dedication to actually part with the money with everything what's happening in the world at the moment, i.e., living crisis, the train strikes, etc., getting to these places. But yeah, not once has the fans as a whole have turned on the players, and that's been like the glue what's like kept everything together. With obviously the players, Steve Cooper, and the club and everything. And I mean, there was times last season where Steve Cooper probably was like fearing for his job, and I know he like really appreciates the backing from the fans, but I think we kept him in the job at times last season where it looked quite precarious. So this season, yeah, we've looked a hell of a lot better, and against. I mean, when the fixtures come out, was it June time? And you looked at them thinking, Jesus Christ, we've got Arsenal, Man U and Chelsea, the first 3 away games of the season. And you're like, there's this, the footballing gods against us when those fixtures come out. But yeah, we've adapted really well, haven't we? I know we didn't win or get any points against Arsenal and Man U, but it just put that bedrock in place where we can go to these places and actually perform and compete rather than just rolling over.
Forest, they look a different proposition away from home this season. Like you say, that opening run of away fixtures is as tough as you can ask for in the Premier League. And the way that they've handled it and the performances they've put into, they put in a good account of themselves at Arsenal. They went 2 goals up at Man United at Old Trafford. Yeah, controversial circumstances about the way that United fought back. And then they've gone to Chelsea now and beaten them on their own patch.
It's an easy observation to make, but obviously there's a lot in it what we don't see. In terms, so the games what we went to last season early on, we went to Newcastle, rabbit in headlights. Against Man City, we was just absolutely in awe of them and never got near them or all night. But the fear factor has been eradicated, and I think it started against Liverpool last season. All right, we lost 3-2 at Anfield, but I think that was the platform thinking, yes, we can go to these places and actually do something against these teams. And Steve Cooper's mentality and the I can do it. One thing with Steve Cooper, ever since he's joined the club in 2001, he's never made excuses, has he? He's never felt, oh, I'm hard done by here. He's actually, no, a can-do mentality. I don't know whether that's come from, because I got mentioned when Tom Cartledge took over as the chair this week at the club, saying, why have we got like it's an okay attitude and everything, it's rather than trying to strive for more, and whether that's been like come from the top and it's filtered down and everything, and Marinakis is like said to Cooper, says no, you can do this, and that's obviously been transferred to the players in terms of we can go to these places and actually do something. And I mean, we've got Man City to come, haven't we? Then got Palace and Liverpool after that in October or whatever. So I think home form's obviously going to be key, but going to these places and actually know that we can do something against these teams, it's really rewarding and refreshing to see after what happened away from home last season.
We'll leave things there for the moment, and we'll now go over to Callum, who's got the news roundup for us.
Hi, this is Callum with the 1865 News. Hope you're all doing well, especially after a very busy weekend. So we'll get straight into it with transfers. On deadline day, we confirmed 7 transfers, but since we last spoke, it was 8 altogether. So firstly, we bought in Murillo for €12 million from Corinthians, the centre-half. The next day, first one on transfer deadline day, we bought in Nuno Tavares on loan with an option to buy. Nico Dominguez from Bologna in a swap deal for Freuler, which saw Remo Freuler going the other way permanently. We bought in the goalkeeper Vlachodimos from Benfica for £7 million. Divock Origi on loan with an option to buy, which is rumoured to be around £4 million. And then Callum Hudson-Odoi came in for £3 million, which could rise to 5, which is incredible business in my opinion. And then there was Andrew Omo Bamidelli for £11 million from Norwich. Forest tried for Trevor Chalobah towards the end of the window, but it sounds like he wanted to stay at Chelsea. And then the big one, which was the last big one to be confirmed, was Ibrahim Sangare for £30 million, the most expensive transfer of the window and maybe the most significant signing that Forest have made in recent times. And then, of course, to fund most of these transfers, we said goodbye to Brennan Johnson for £47.5 million. Really sad to see him go. I'm sure the guys will speak about that in depth. Obviously, Remo Freuler going to Bologna. We had Juan going to Norwich on loan. Lewis O'Brien to Middlesbrough on loan. Loic Embasso left on loan as well. And then Jonathan Panzo went to Cardiff on loan. There was obviously a push for Batshuayi as well, but he stayed at Fenerbahce and we got Divock Origi instead. So that's all of the transfers. Other news that we had was Nicholas Randall stepped down as chairman and was replaced by Tom Cartledge. And then Taiwo Awoniyi became the 3rd African player in Premier League history to score in 7 consecutive games alongside Mo Salah and Emmanuel Adebayor, which is an unbelievable achievement. I know he didn't make it 8 games, but he did get an assist in that 8th game, so he is on a roll at the moment. Thank you very much, and I'll be back again with the news soon.
NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that you can stay close to your team even if you don't live in their town. Like, maybe you're a Raven who married a Seahawk who got a job in the land of the Falcons. With NFL Sunday Ticket, you can watch your team's out-of-market Sunday afternoon games no matter where you live, because you shouldn't have to change teams even if you change towns. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
The 1865 Match Report.
Thanks, Callum. So Friday was transfer deadline day. Now, we're not going to spend too much time talking about Forest's deadline day transfers and the business that they conducted, because we'll be doing that in our roundup pod, which we'll have with you during the international break. But a quick rundown of the business that Forest did. So incomings, Nuno Tavares on a season-long loan from Arsenal with an option to buy. Nicolas Dominguez, a midfielder from Bologna, for an undisclosed fee, with Remo Freuler going the other way. Callum Hudson-Odoi joining from Chelsea. Odysseus Vlachodimos, the goalkeeper, coming in from Benfica. Divock Origi on a season-long loan from AC Milan. Andrew Ombombadeli from Norwich City, the young Republic of Ireland defender. And the big one, Ibrahim Sangare, signing from PSV Eindhoven for a reported £30 million. And outgoings, Loic Mbeso on a season-long loan to Almere City. Remo Freuler, as we've mentioned. Jonathan Panzo on loan to Cardiff City. Brennan Johnson to Spurs. And Hwang Yu-jo on a season-long loan to Norwich City. So a busy transfer deadline day for Forest, with 7 new faces coming in. And just briefly, Tom, were you happy, surprised, or concerned with any of the deals that Forest conducted?
No, I'm very happy with what's happened. I mean, there was a lot of noise about Johnson. Would he go on deadline day? I think a lot of Forest fans have got to realise our position in the food chain. I mean, even the teams at the top reshuffle the pack, don't they, for FFP reasons? Like Chelsea had signed quite a few players, but then let a few players go. So we're the same as any other club, really. And I've never had a problem with Forest selling players in the past, but even previous regimes, as like Faraz and his merry men, selling players, pocketing the money, and then not replacing that adequately. I mean, I know he's had more clubs than Nick Faldo, hasn't he? Ollie Burke, but yeah, when we sold him, when he was on that Rich Vayner form at the start of the was it 16-17 season, when he scored those goals against Leeds, then we replaced him with Nicola Dimitriou, who I haven't got a clue where he is, and a few others. That's where I've had the problem in the past. But yeah, we held out all summer for Brennan Johnson of the fee, which was around about 50 million quid. I mean, Brentford tried to scratch around for the pennies and offered only 30 up to 40 million, which obviously didn't hit the value of what Forest deemed Brennan Johnson to be. So, yeah, we had a funny feeling, didn't we, from the middle of the week, that Tottenham would come in for him, and that's the FFP, because obviously the homegrown, it's pure profit and everything. It's probably helped us out for the next good few windows now, hasn't it? And having the players in, I mean, I never thought Sangare was ever going to come to Forest. He's like playing he's going to be playing in the Champions League for PSV and everything. Bayern Munich were potentially sniffing around and everything. And I was fairly surprised that he was still a PSV player come middle of the week. And I can't remember who broke the news. I don't know if it's Fabrizio Romano or one of the others who says Forest have got a chance here. And I thought, oh, they're going to put a bid in here, and it's not. He's either going to reject it, or then it got to like 11 o'clock on Friday night, didn't it? And then I thought, I'll stay up until about 11:45, see if it gets confirmed and everything, and it did. And I thought, I'll go to bed. And then the first thing I did on Saturday morning was, is Sangare signed? And obviously he'd signed with Divock Origi, and I think it's an absolute brilliant window, because, like I says, we're selling Brennan, who's, I sincerely hope he will go to the next step playing for Spurs now, that we've got these players in, and it's not just like mediocre because we've got the money, let's just sign anybody. We've actually thought about it, and we've done very, very well on deadline day, and I'm really looking forward to seeing these players being integrated in a really good side and kicking on now for the season ahead.
Forest now are not in action for 2 weeks due to the international break. They return to action against Burnley on September 18th, a Monday night fixture at the City Ground. And then they follow that up with an away trip, another nice and easy away trip to Manchester City. And then it's Brentford at home and Crystal Palace away. Now, with the international break, you would think that gives Steve Cooper the chance to work with some of the new signings and start to integrate them into the team. We only saw the one feature at Chelsea in Nuno Tavares. So do you expect that we'll start to see some of the new faces as soon as the Burnley match and beyond?
I think they'll be drip fed in, really, because, okay, it's an international break and everything. It's a case of he's not going to see many of the players, is he, in terms of they will go off with their nations and everything and whatever qualifiers they've got and all of that. So I think they will be drip fed in, like substitute appearances from the bench and everything, and do it that way, unless there's any injuries or suspensions to contend with. So, yeah, I just think it's going to be the first few weeks after the international break, it's going to be what we've seen against Chelsea yesterday, then like drip feed the players in and see what transpires after that.
And I imagine it will be a very different Forest team to the one that played against Burnley this week in the EFL Cup. And I expect a better performance as well in that game. We'll leave it there then. Thank you, Tom. And thank you to Callum for the news roundup. And thank you to you, listener, for joining us. We will be back with you during the international break with our Roundup podcast. So if you haven't already, do subscribe to make sure that you don't miss that one. And any of the match reports that we put out this season, of course, we do match reports after every Forest game. We will be back with you soon. Thanks again for joining us. And until next time, goodbye.
Social Podcast Network.